It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, live from Jerusalem this evening. Our top story. Hamas says it has returned all the bodies of Israeli hostages it can reach so far and will need specialist equipment to retrieve the rest. Within the past hour, Donald Trump has repeated his calls for Hamas to disarm.
The weapons to be given up, sacrificed, and they've agreed to do it. Now they have to do it, and if they don't do it, we'll do it.
Funerals are held for the first of those hostages whose bodies were returned from Gaza. It comes as a former Israeli Prime Minister tells me an international force is needed on the ground in Gaza very quickly.
Inter-Arab/Muslim force should be there in few weeks, not several months.
Also ahead on Sky News at 10, in breaking news, the government has just published witness statements made by the Deputy National Security Advisor as part of the collapsed China spying trial. The Chancellor exclusively tells Sky News she's considering tax rises and spending cuts as part of next month's budget. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight.
Good evening from Jerusalem. The armed wing of Hamas said it has now handed over all the bodies of Israeli hostages it's been able to recover in Gaza. Tonight, 2 more bodies have been handed to the Red Cross to be brought here to the National Institute of Forensic Medicine in Tel Aviv, where they will be formally identified before burial. But Hamas has said it will need specialist equipment to retrieve the remaining hostage bodies. Israel has called the speed of Hamas's delivery a breach of the peace agreement. Within the past hour, Donald Trump has repeated his call for Hamas to disarm. In a moment, we'll hear from the former Prime Minister Ehud Barak, who told me that immediate security intervention is necessary to prevent Hamas from filling the power vacuum in the territory. But first, this report from our Middle East correspondent, Adam Parsons.
This was a funeral for Guy Elous, but it was also a cry from the soul of a nation, from people who didn't know Guy, but who see him and his story of captivity as a symbol of Israel's pain.
We are family, but I don't know him, and I know him, but he doesn't know me, okay? So this is, in Hebrew we said, Kol Israel Arevim ze laze. We are all responsible to each other. This is my duty.
Guy Elous's coffin was transported in an unassuming panel van. He was a quiet man whose death came in captivity in the wake of the violence of October the 7th. Mourners walked behind.
I'm very happy to see the live hostages back, but we cannot forget the dead ones who are left behind. And this is the minimum that we can say for them, that we are sorry that we couldn't bring them back here alive.
This procession and the sight of Guy Elous's coffin in the back of the vehicle are evidence that the ceasefire is bearing fruit. His body has been returned. But all this emotion is also proof of something else, the deep trauma felt across Israeli society. Hamas returned the bodies of 3 hostages on Tuesday night and has now handed over 2 more coffins, but it claims it can't recover any more bodies without the use of specialist equipment. In Gaza too, there is a focus on the dead. Here, 45 bodies of Palestinian prisoners have been returned by Israel. That's 90 bodies sent back to Gaza in 2 days. All identified by a number, but not a name. Outside, as the dead arrive, the living ask questions. This woman is looking for her missing husband.
Mentally, we're exhausted. I don't even know how to think anymore. Am I still married or have I lost my husband? It feels like I'm trapped in between. It's so hard. It's as if I've already seen him die and buried in my mind. The thought is unbearable, not knowing if he's dead, imprisoned or alive somewhere.
Aid is getting into Gaza, even though the Rafah crossing remains closed. Convoys of trucks that are making shuttle trips in and out. It's not enough, but our team on the ground heard more optimism.
Thank God the prices are suitable today. They are much better than they were. They've dropped in the markets. You don't find everything you need in the shops, really, but it's much better than before. The famine is gone, at least partly. So that's good. Hope this carries on and the aid continues to flow.
But reality trumps optimism. This is what it's like to drive through the north of Gaza City. A catastrophic landscape of dust and rubble. The ceasefire is holding, but the suffering is boundless. Adam Parsons, Sky News, Jerusalem.
Well, Israel's former Prime Minister and head of the army, Ehud Barak, has told me that the international force planned for Gaza must be on the ground within a few weeks, not months. He said it was essential for Hamas to hand over its weapons. When we sat down in Tel Aviv earlier today, he also said that Benjamin Netanyahu was not the man to guide Israel to peace under Trump's plan.
I wonder whether he can do it. He's basically the one who brought us this disaster. He was the one who failed on the 7th of October when you interviewed me 2 years ago, and he clearly failed all along the way afterward. So basically, in his own words, he said, to expect that the one who failed and broke something will be the one who will fix it is like thinking that the captain of the Titanic, if he would have survived, should get the command of the new ship.
Now, the future, there's a vacuum in Gaza, a vacuum of power in Gaza. Does an international force need to get into Gaza now quickly?
Yeah, I think that international force, maybe not international, inter-Arab/Muslim force should be there in few weeks, not several months. If it takes several months, Hamas will have a second thought on his readiness to give its arms, offensive arms, at least to the newly built security force. Because the inter-Arab force should enter immediately. No chance that Hamas will dare to shoot at Egyptians who hold literally the oxygen pipe to the strip. They will not dare to shoot at Emiratis who had the purse for the reconstruction. There will be tens of billions along a decade probably. They won't dare to do it. Israel should put only two conditions. Number one, not a single member of the military wing of Hamas can participate in any organ of the new entity. Number two, the final withdrawal to the border will be only once the pre-agreed security milestones are met. Right. It's painful but simple, and the only precondition for its success, determination of Trump. Trump might lose his attention to this issue. There is anything from Ukraine to China, and the economic system and problems at home. We need the same Trump determined to keep moving toward peace.
Can this Trump framework, do you think it can lead to a solution? And would that solution have to be a two-state solution? Do you think that can emerge?
It will take time. It cannot happen overnight, but the zeitgeist, the atmosphere in the world and the pressure on both sides to find a solution is created in front of our eyes even the last week. Of course, in the long term, two-state solution is the only sustainable one. Any other solution will break.
Well, speaking in the last hour, President Donald Trump has renewed his calls for Hamas to disarm, but also acknowledged the efforts made so far to return hostages' bodies.
And so we have the living hostages all back. They returned some more today. It's a gruesome process. I almost hate to talk about it. But they're digging. They're actually digging. There are areas where they're digging and they're finding a lot of bodies Then they have to separate the bodies. You wouldn't believe this. And some of those bodies have been in there a long time. And some of them are under rubble. They have to remove rubble. But there are graves, and some are in tunnels that died in tunnels that are way down under the earth. And the tunnels are like 3 feet. Can you believe it? 3 feet high. They lived like this for a long period of time. It's a horrible atrocity. At the same time, we, meaning Israel, but I knew everything they were doing pretty much. I knew most of the things they were doing, but they've killed probably 70,000 of these people, Hamas. And I said, it's time now. So we'll see what happens. We'll also see what happens. Your next question is going to be the weapons. We want the weapons to be given up, sacrificed, and they've agreed to do it. Now they have to do it. And if they don't do it, we'll do it.
Let's bring in our US correspondent, David Blevins. And it seems that Trump's ceasefire plan is already under some pressure, and he knows it.
Yes, to some extent, President Trump pivoted back to domestic affairs today, announcing that the FBI's crime unit had arrested 28,000 people since he returned to the White House. But the focus of his attention is very much still on foreign affairs. He effectively repeated his veiled threat to Hamas that if they don't disarm, the United States will disarm them, and expressed his continuing concern, as you heard, about the pace of the return of hostage remains. In fact, since the president spoke, we've heard from a US advisor regarding the retrieval of hostage bodies. He says no one is getting left behind. That advisor also said that no rebuilding money will go into areas that Hamas controls. So another reason, I suppose, a motivation for them to hand over their weapons. And he also said that many countries have raised their hand to be part of the Gaza stabilization force, including Indonesia. So I think all of this points to the continuing challenges, whether it is about disarmament or about security in the region, or who's going to govern Gaza in the interim. The president has also been speaking about another matter related to foreign affairs, and that is Venezuela. Yesterday, the US military carried out a strike on a fifth boat, which they claim was transporting narcotics from Venezuela to the United States. In recent weeks, 27 people have been killed in similar strikes. It's raising all sorts of questions about international law and the use of force. But the president says the United States has taken control of the seas, and they're now, in their battle against these cartels, going to focus on the land. So no shortage of challenges for this administration right now at home and abroad.
David, thank you very much indeed. Well, our Middle East correspondent, Adam Parsons, is here with me. So these problems with the bodies, the violence in Gaza, do you think these problems were factored in, or do they pose a real threat to the ceasefire?
Somewhere in the middle, Mark. I think everyone knew that there were going to be problems with this ceasefire. I think the idea that Hamas could just get together all of these bodies in one go was fanciful. The Red Cross had already said that it was going to be difficult to get them all together. And the violence that is being seen on the streets was, I think, inevitable, because there is a vacuum at the moment. People are not having to flee from bombing and shelling. Hamas still has remnants there, but so do other organizations as well. So they are jousting for control. But what is happening is that these problems are being amplified. The United States is trying to corral Hamas into a corner. Interesting also that Donald Trump is talking about countries like Indonesia, big Muslim countries, and saying they are behind me, Arab nations are behind me, Israel is behind me, Hamas, you need to step up. The big problem is that there is really no coherent second phase. There's nothing to grab hold of. The big questions haven't been addressed, like who's going to run the Gaza Strip, who's going to be on this board of peace if it comes into place. And this question of disarmament, him saying, well, if you don't disarm, we'll make you. Nobody's defined what disarmament is. It's about saying Hamas has to give up everything, or is it about giving up certain weapons, keeping the others? And by the way, what would Hamas's role be in the future? So this is a negotiating tactic, I think, rather than a catastrophic failure of the ceasefire. As long as Donald Trump is interested, and as long as he wants this ceasefire in place, then I think it will be.
It was what Ehud Barak said today. If Trump stays concentrated, there's a chance. Yeah, Adam, thanks very much indeed. Thank you. Right, that's it from me in Jerusalem for this evening. Let's go back to Anna now for the rest of the day's news.
Mark, thank you. The government has just published witness statements from the Deputy National Security Advisor, Matt Collins, made as part of the collapsed China spying trial. It followed days of mounting pressure on the government, Sir Keir Starmer, updating Parliament at the start of PMQs, where the controversy dominated and the political blame game over the case continued. Our political correspondent, Maura Cohen, has this report.
Two men accused of passing secrets to the communist regime in China. And then the case dramatically dropped. The row about why Christopher Cash, a former parliamentary researcher, and Christopher Berry, a teacher, who insist they're innocent, never went to trial, is deepening. For days, the government and the Crown Prosecution Service, who brought the case, have publicly blamed each other for it not going ahead.
Prime Minister.
Today, Keir Starmer under pressure to set the record straight.
May I update the House on the China spy case? I'm deeply disappointed by the outcome. We wanted to see prosecutions. In recent weeks, there have been baseless accusations put about by the party opposite. Let me set out the facts. The relevant period was when these offences took place. That was under the Conservative government between the years of 2021 and 2023.
The opposition, Kemi Bell.
The leader of the opposition claimed it was a cover-up.
A serious case involving national security has collapsed because this government is too weak to stand up to China. The charges were brought under us, the case collapsed under them. Can the Prime Minister tell us what changed and what collapsed the case?
And then this commitment.
Mr. Speaker, I've said I will publish the witness statements in full. The whole House will then see exactly what was set out.
In March 2023, the two men were arrested under the Official Secrets Act. A year later, in April 2024, they were charged with espionage offences, accused of gathering and providing information to China prejudicial to the safety or interests of the state. In July, Keir Starmer became Prime Minister and the government provided additional information to prosecutors. In October, Cash and Berry pleaded not guilty at the Old Bailey. On the 15th of September 2025, prosecutors dropped the charges, saying the evidence they had gathered did not meet the threshold to continue.
Is it possible, as some people are saying, that they didn't provide strong enough evidence because they were not willing to stand up to China?
It's a criticism that can't be ruled out, because it may have been that the CPS said, well, we only will accept evidence of a certain kind from a certain person in a certain form. And the government said, well, we can't provide that. And so really it was the CPS setting too high a bar. Alternatively, the CPS may have said, well, we don't really mind who says it and how they say it. We just need to meet this test in some way. And the government refused.
Keir Starmer is said to be planning a visit to Beijing, and the Chancellor is trying to drum up Chinese investment. But with MPs holding inquiries and the Tories pushing to reopen the case, the China spy saga is far from over. Tamara Cohen, Sky News, Westminster.
Well, our chief political correspondent, John Craig, is in Westminster for us. And I know, John, you've been hastily digesting these documents released in the last 40 minutes or so. So how do they fit in with the allegations surrounding the collapse of this spy case? And indeed, what do they say?
Well, here they are. There are three of them. These are witness statements given by Matthew Collins, the Deputy National Security Advisor. He's a career civil servant, not a political appointee. There are three. They date from 2023 to this year. Now, the first one is 12 pages long. It concludes, the date of that one is the 22nd of December 2023. Mr. Collins concludes, "It is my assessment that the suspect's alleged activities were prejudicial to the safety or interests of the UK, and the information and material passed would be directly or indirectly useful to the Chinese state. Now, there's another one from February 2025, and then the third, that's 3 pages, and then another 3-page witness statement dated the 4th of August this year, just weeks before the collapse of the trial. In that, there's a marked difference in tone between this one on the 4th of August and the one from 2023, because this one in August, Mr. Collins says this: "It is important for me to emphasise, however, that the UK government is committed to pursuing a positive relationship with China to strengthen understanding, cooperation and stability. The government's position is that we will cooperate where we can, compete where we need to, and challenge where we must, including on issues of national security." Well, that phrase, cooperate where we can, compete where we need to, that is straight out of the Labour manifesto at last year's general election. That is bound to lead to suggestions from the government's political opponents that there was indeed political interference. Now, the government, the number 10 sources are telling Sky News they feel that these documents vindicate what the Prime Minister was saying at Prime Minister's questions. The Conservatives have responded so far by saying there are a lot of questions unanswered. They say it's only part of the evidence that is necessary. This row's not going to go away. There is fury in Parliament at the handling of this whole affair. Now, the reason we're here is because we on the outside Parliament is because we were told that it was going to be a select committee, a committee of MPs publishing this material. It took so long. It was 9 hours after Prime Minister's questions. MPs and peers were ringing Downing Street furiously saying, get on with it. And we've learned that this afternoon in a Commons committee room, there was an angry showdown between MPs and peers who chair many of the most senior select committees, Home Affairs, Foreign Affairs, Intelligence and Security and so on, with Stephen Parkinson, the Director of Public Prosecutions. He and his team of 4, all men, were accused of being patronising towards Emily Thornberry, who chairs the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, because she kept asking questions. What changed? What changed? She was told at one point, you don't understand. She said, I've been a criminal barrister for 20 years. So there's a lot of anger over this, the way it's been handled. The Prime Minister thought that publishing these documents might help him get off the hook in this row, but all the signs are he won't, and there'll be plenty more questions for him to answer.
John, bringing us that update from Westminster. Many thanks for that. Now, the Chancellor has told Sky News she is considering both tax rises and spending cuts in next month's budget in her first interview since being briefed on the scale of the black hole in the country's finances. It's the first time Rachel Reeves has publicly confirmed that tax hikes are being planned, as she now looks to find up to £30 billion in order to balance the books. Our deputy political editor, Sam Coates, has this exclusive report.
Economic growth is the #1 mission.
Growth is the #1 mission.
Growth. Growth.
Growth.
The government says growth will fix everything, but they don't have it yet.
We haven't been building enough and we haven't been growing enough, and this is about trying to turn that around.
Now, in an exclusive interview with Sky News, the Chancellor has conceded for the first time there will be yet more economic pain in the budget next month.
There are tax rises coming down the track.
Yeah, but I think that this government are making... in terms of the ambition of this government, it is big.
But you agreed, yes, there are tax rises coming down the track.
Well, I was really clear during the general election campaign, and we discussed this many times, that I would always make sure that the numbers add up. And of course, challenges are being thrown our way, but I won't duck those challenges. Of course, we're looking at tax and spending as well.
Even as she tries to get Britain building, speaking to us in Dartford at the busiest road crossing in the UK, it's a cycle she's struggling to break out of.
Can you promise the British people you're not going to get stuck in a doom loop of having to go through this cycle every year of having to find more tax to fill the black hole?
Nobody wants that cycle to end more than I do, Sam. That's why that is why we're putting all the effort into growing our economy.
In a conscious shift by this government, she says Brexit is to blame for the black hole.
Austerity, Brexit, and the ongoing impact of Liz Truss's mini budget, all of those things have weighed heavily on the UK economy. Already, people thought that the UK economy would be 4% smaller because of Brexit. Now, of course, we are undoing some of that damage by the deal that we did with the EU earlier this year, but there is no doubting that the impact of Brexit is severe and long-lasting.
Back in Westminster, the Tories say this will amount to yet another betrayal.
I just thought it was extraordinary that here is somebody who back before the election said we're not going to be taxing everybody left, right and centre. We then had £40 billion worth of tax increases in the autumn. She told the CBI and others that was a one-off, she wouldn't be coming back for more, and yet she has. And what we've discovered in your interview is that she has confirmed there will be further tax increases in the autumn.
Dismay too from many Labour MPs, including this former cabinet member.
It's very worrying to hear about spending cuts, presumably in unprotected departments, for example, local government. These are departments that cannot bear any further spending cuts than they've already experienced over the last several years. We've come out of 15 years of austerity. These are not areas that can bear further spending cuts.
How did you feel when you heard the Chancellor effectively acknowledge that we're in a doom loop?
Well, this is exactly why we need to tackle the short-termism that the OBR has embedded into our politics. So, as I say, we're making decisions on a six-monthly basis.
Isn't it the Chancellor and her fiscal rules that created this situation?
I think I don't have any problem with the fiscal rules, but I think them combined with the self-imposed tax rules and with the orthodoxy, the rigid orthodoxy of the OBR has led to this short-termism, absolutely embedded it.
Rachel Reeves' candour in our interview about the spending cuts and the tax rises that are needed in the budget has come as a jolt to Labour MPs. But at a stroke, it has changed the conversation, enabling a debate in public about how on earth to fill the 20 to 30 billion pound black hole that the Chancellor faces and must be filled by the people in the building behind me. Reality is dawning on the Labour Party. One very, very senior figure told me that getting this right was existential. Number 11 and number 10 joined together in more ways than one. Following our interview, the Prime Minister's spokesman declined to repeat the manifesto promise to leave income tax, national insurance and VAT untouched. Preparing for a difficult budget has begun in earnest. Sam Coates, Sky News, Westminster.
The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, says the government will pursue the company linked to Baroness Michelle Mone for millions of pounds paid for defective PPE during the COVID pandemic after a High Court deadline passed without repayment. Earlier this month, PPE Medpro was found to be in breach of contract and given 2 weeks to repay the £122 million plus interest of £23 million. Here's our business correspondent, Paul Kelso.
This is Baroness Michelle Mone and her husband Doug Barrowman, and today was the deadline for the company he founded and she promoted to repay millions received for faulty PPE. Well, now we've had confirmation it has not been repaid, and Health Secretary Wes Streeting says he will pursue PPE Medpro with everything we've got to get these funds back where they belong in our health service. So what chance of getting the money back? A reminder, all of this stems from a deal between PPE Medpro, the company founded by Doug Barrowman, and the Department of Health. And in May 2020, at the height of the rush for PPE, the government set up a VIP lane to allow MPs and peers to recommend PPE providers. Baroness Mone sent these emails, one to Lord Agnew, another one here to Michael Gove, recommending the company, although for several years publicly she denied playing any part. But a month later, PPE Medpro was contracted to provide 210 million face masks for £81 million and 25 million sterile gowns for another 122, a total of £203 million for a company that only existed for a month. And while the face mask contract was fulfilled, the gowns did not meet sterility standards. They were rejected as unusable. The Department of Health then sued, and PPE Medpro was found to be in breach of contract. Here are the words in the judgment. They were ordered to repay £122 million. And in fact, Wes Streeting now says they owe another £24 million on top in interest, with a further 8% interest payable until the bill is settled. But there is a problem. It is PPE Medpro that is liable. And the day before that judgment, it filed for insolvency, meaning an administrator is now in charge. In its latest accounts, if they're looking for the money, here are the accounts. They show assets in the most recent, of just £666,000. So where did the rest of the money go? Now, Doug Barrowman has admitted PPE Medpro earned around 30% profit on the deal, call that £65 million, and around 29 million of that was paid into a trust of which his family, including Michelle Mone and her children and his, are beneficiaries. But she insists this is not the same as her having the money. In a letter to Kemi Badenoch, she explained, "It is a trust set up by my husband for the benefit of all our kids, not just mine. I have no entitlement to any of this money whatsoever." Now, Doug Barrowman and the other founders of PPE Medpro say they are willing to discuss a settlement with the Department of Health, but the government doesn't sound in any mood to accept. But if the administrators can't find the money, and remember, it is the company that is liable, there is a chance the taxpayer will end up with nothing bar more legal bills.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we will take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview tonight, joined by the Daily Mirror columnist Kevin Maguire and the Telegraph's comment editor Annabelle Denham. And among the stories, we'll be discussing, of course, the very latest breaking news, the release of those documents with regard to the China spying case. Back in a moment.